During an interview with Steve Croft on tonight's 60 Minutes, President Obama acknowledges the U.S. misjudged the threat from ISIS.
How did they end up where they are in control of so much territory? Was that a complete surprise to you?
Well, I think our head of the intelligence community, Jim Clapper, has acknowledged that I think they underestimated what had been taking place in Syria. Essentially what happened with ISIL was that you had al-Qaeda in Iraq, which was a vicious group, but our Marines were able to quash with the help of Sunni tribes. They went back underground, but over the past couple of years, during the chaos of the Syrian civil war, where essentially you have huge swaths of the country that are completely ungoverned, they were able to reconstitute themselves and take advantage of that chaos and attract foreign fighters who believed in their jihadist nonsense and traveled everywhere from Europe to the United States to Australia to other parts of the Muslim world, converging on Syria. And so this became ground zero for jihadists around the world. And this is one of the challenges that we're going to have generally, is where you've got states that are failing or in the midst of civil war, these kinds of organizations thrive. That's why it's so important for us to recognize part of our solution here is going to be military. We just have to push them back and shrink their space and go after their command and control and their capacity and their weapons and their fueling and cut off their financing and work to eliminate the flow of foreign fighters.
You mentioned James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence. I mean, he didn't just say that we underestimated ISIL. He said we overestimated the ability and the will of our allies, the Iraqi army, to fight.
That's true.
Well, arming the Syrian opposition was something that led to the rise of Islamic State. US Vice President Joe Biden admits this was a key strategic mistake, made not by Washington, but by its Arab allies. Igor Piskunov gauges the reaction.
Our allies in the region were our largest problem in Syria. The Turks were great friends, the Saudis, the Emiratis, etc. What were they doing? They were so determined to take down Assad, they poured hundreds of millions of dollars and tens, thousands of tons of weapons into anyone who would fight against Assad, except that the people who were being supplied were al-Nusra and al-Qaeda and the extremist elements of jihadis coming from other parts of the world.
For the first time, U.S. authorities openly admit their allies in the Middle East have been aiding terrorists. But it wasn't that long ago that American officials seemed so confident both in the Syrian opposition.
I just don't agree that a majority are al-Qaeda and the bad guys. That's not true.
Our intelligence agencies, I think, have a very good handle on who to support and who not to support.
And also stood shoulder to shoulder with their allies aiding them in Syria.
We are working hand in glove with the Turks, with the Jordanians, with the Saudis, and with all the people in the region, attempting to identify the people who deserve the help.
The help included automatic rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, ammunition, and anti-tank weapons funneled across the Syrian-Turkish border, and more than 160 military-style cargo plane flights to Turkey from Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar by spring 2013 alone. Not to mention the official coordination of the whole process by Washington, including alleged CIA rebel training camps. And now the US is throwing its allies under the bus.
Now that it has become critical, politically essential for Obama to deflect blame away from what's going on in Syria, they have to find an easy scapegoat, one that resonates with the American people, and Saudi Arabia is the perfect scapegoat.
Not only Saudi Arabia, but the entire Gulf Cooperation Council, the Gulf monarchies, all are in the camp of the United States.
It is quite unlikely that Washington's allies in the Middle East will take Joe Biden's latest claims with applause, and these are the same allies which are supposed to help the US fight ISIS in Iraq and Syria. It seems this time the administration really has put itself in quite a brain twister, since when it comes to ISIS, well, that genie has already proven to be quite unwilling to be put back in its bottle. Igor Piskunov, RT, Washington.
Well, let's trace America's involvement in arming the Syrian rebels. In the summer of 2012, it became known that the CIA was operating in Turkey, helping US allies select which rebel groups to arm. A year on, the agency helped Arab nations expand weapon shipments. In September last year, Barack Obama confirmed that the first US-trained rebels had been deployed in Syria. Also that month, reports emerged that Washington was secretly funneling weapons to the opposition itself. Some Middle East analysts say that the US has backed itself into a diplomatic corner.
The reality is that there is no way to hold the Middle East together without stabilizing Assad and without the U.S. coming to some agreement with Iran. Assad and Iran are in a very strong position right now because if Iraq is to fail, that's going to be a very black mark against the United States for a very long time.
The US and NATO in general are very embarrassed by the fact that it is no longer tenable that there is something like a democratic revolution in Syria, and they're trying to distance themselves from that through these statements. But of course, there's also another factor here that we shouldn't ignore, which is that they're deft dialecticians. In other words, that the chessboard is changing. They're playing around with terminology and trying to assure people that they know what they're doing.
Potential downsides, the consequences of arming some of the moderate rebels in Syria. When we see reports like what happened just last week, that the Free Syrian Army was apparently participating in the abduction of 40-some UN peacekeepers in the Golan Heights. Are these the people that we want to start supplying with weapons?
Well, two different things, in the Ukraine and in Syria. Syria, we backed, I believe, in some cases, some of the wrong people, and not in the right part of the Free Syrian Army, and that's a little confusing to people. So I've always maintained, to go back quite some time, that we were backing the wrong types. I think it's going to turn out maybe this weekend in a new special that Brett Baer is going to have Friday that's going to show some of those weapons from Benghazi ended up in the hands of ISIS. So we helped build ISIS. Now there's a danger there.
لا إله إلا الله. ارجعوا إلى الله. بس نذبح النائب العام ولا لا؟ لا تذبحوا هذا ولا حد يذبح. اللي ذبح أولاد ضده.
بدنا نفصل.
وبالإحرابي هذا كلهم قتلهم.
ما السورتين.
والكردي هذا اللي.
ما السورتين بدنا مشان نحط شهادة.
كله حرام بحرام.
حبيب قلبي والله أجلنا طلع اليوم على الشيخ مشان الشهر هاي الدنيا برد.
بالله والإمام النووي نعستوه. والدعبي نعستوه الله بالعث بركتكم ارجعوا إلى الله ارجعوا إلى الله. ارجعوا إلى الله ما بتقلبوا شيء لا أنتوا ولا بشار كله خرع عن خرع لا أنتوا ولا هو
حجة ما احناش فاضيين توكل على الله حجة توكل على الله
لا أنتوا ولا هو ما في مسؤول لا لكم ولا إله بتضلوا تقتلوا بعضكم مثل الحمير مثل الدبش مثل الغنم ارجعوا لله ارجعوا يا جد ارجعوا
سنعود
ارجعوا إلى الله
سنعود يا حجة سنعود
ارجعوا القبر هالجدة ما انتوش حاسبين الحساب
بين الله بين الله
بالدنيا
بيقول لك صلى استخارة كان يصفق يسقط النظام اسأليه سقط
ما بيسقط النظام لا الله بيرضى يسقط النظام ولا أرضى بينجحكم ولا بينجحوا كله شرقي بعضه قال احنا جوكم وانتوا عور خليها الطابق مستور يا
كبير يا حاج والله حاج
الرجل شلت من الممشى عيت على عير عرعوره
الله أكبر
من الكذب عندكم كمشة ومن الكذب مطمورة مبجورة من القمح ما عندهم كمشة والكذب مطمورة مبجورة ارجعوا لله ارجعوا
إن شاء الله
بتغزل للحليب دولتكم ملعونة لا خير في كثير من نجواهم إلا من أمر بصدقات أو معروف أو إصلاح بين الناس وإن طائفتان من المؤمنين اقتتلوا فأصلحوا بينهما فإن بغت إحداهما على الأخرى التي هي تبغي حتى تفيء إلى أمر الله فإن فأت فأصلحوا بينهما بالعدل وأقسطوا إن الله يحب المقسطين إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون ب50 مرة هون متجوزات شيعيات يعني مثل اللي بتجوز الدبة وبرفع ديلها بالعودة ارجعوا إلى الله ارجعوا إلى الله ارجعوا إلى الله ارجعوا إلى الله خافوا من الله ما بدكم هالذبح ولا بدكم هالقتل
جيناكم بذبح
اهجموا وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم يوم حرب حزيران الشاطرة اللي بدها تخبي ابنها ويلط من عروس ما بدناش يروحوا اما يوم جتكم مصاري امريكا وسلاح امريكا بدكم تقتلوا بعضكم كيف عقة البعض؟
كلامك صحيح حاج.
ارجعوا إلى الله.
هسه مروحين خلاص.
ارجعوا يا جدة. ولقد أهلكنا القرون من قبلكم لما ظلموا وجاءتهم رسلهم بالبينات وما كانوا ليؤمنوا كذلك نجزي القوم المجرمين كذلك نجزي ثم جعلناكم خلائف في الأرض من بعدهم لننظر كيف تعملون. قاعد ينظر كيف تعملوا. بعدين إن الذين كذبوا بآياتنا واستكبروا عنها لا تفتح لهم أبواب السماء ولا يدخلون الجنة حتى يلج الجمل في سم الخياط وكذلك نجزي المجرمين. لهم من جهنم مهاد ومن فوقهم غواش وكذلك نجزي الظالمين. ارجعوا يا جدة لا الله.
وين راح انت؟
نبي بده يحضر عليكم. كانوا تودوني على دار محمد الشيخ ودوني.
حجة والله ما احنا فاضيين، ما احناش فاضيين يا حجة.
مع السلامة.
وحدي الله وحدي الله، ما احناش فاضيين.
أنا بدي أروح.
توكل على الله حج، توكل على الله.
وقف على الشارع، ارجعوا لله.
توكل على الله، توكل على الله.
يا خالد يعني جاكم
سيارة جت سيارة حاجة تعجل.